Albert Einstein said that imagination is more important than knowledge. Paul Arden said that creativity is far more powerful than experience. If you're relying too much on experience, you're not being original. You're not being creative. You're relying too much on the past. You're not thinking enough about your future. In this 10-minute future self meditation, you're going to let go of your former identity. You're going to let go of your former story. You're going to heal your former self. Faulkner said that the past is never dead. It is not even past. You carry your past with you wherever you go. Your past is not gone. You're carrying a version of your past with you. The thing that you may not realize is that your past is always reconstructed here in the present. Right here and now, you reconstruct the past based on your current perspective. So when you change your perspective, you change your past. You change the meanings of your former experience. You can forgive, heal, and let go of your former pain and your former trauma. Trauma is nothing but a dysfunctional belief about something that happened. It's dysfunctional because it's stopping you from functioning. It's stopping you from moving forward. Trauma is a shattered identity that leads to a fixed mindset and a loss of hope. It's the holding on to an emotional response. So in this 10-minute meditation, you're going to either pull out your journal and answer some questions, or just close your eyes and just simply let things happen. See what comes to your mind. Think about who you were 5 years ago. It could be any time, actually. 3, 5 years ago, maybe even 1 year ago. Who were you in the past, and what did you care about back then? It could even be 10 years ago, if you want to go back that far. Who were you? What were you thinking about? What were you worried about? What were you concerned about? Now think about who you are today. Do you have the same perspectives as you used to have? Are you worried about the same things? Do you see life the same way? Think about someone in your life who maybe has hurt you, disappointed you, or let you down. Why did you feel so hurt? Why did you feel let down? What about your perspective back then led you to being disappointed or having your expectations shattered? What if you had a different perspective? What if you were a little higher up the mountain right now and you could see things that you couldn't see before? As a simple example, when I was a teenage boy, my father was a drug addict, an extreme drug addict. And at that point in time, my perspective was very limited. I was caught up in what was going on. I couldn't see my father from any perspective beyond my own 15-year-old self's emotions. Now at this point, over 15 years later, I can better understand what would have led him to those addictions, that depression. And so I don't have to see my father as a villain, I can actually see him as a hero. So who in your past that maybe was a villain can you transform into a hero with a little bit more context, a little bit more empathy towards their situation, towards what they were going through? What would happen if you let go of how you felt and instead changed your perspective and you looked at how you could gain from that experience, how you could become better instead of bitter? What if you looked at that experience, whatever it was, and even that person, that they are happening for you, not to you, that they empowered you, and that you could use that experience to be more creative in the future, that you could create better experiences in the future rather than trying to avoid that experience, or rather than needlessly clinging on to your view. Trauma is a dysfunctional view which you're clinging on to and trying to defend and hold on to so that you can justify a loss of hope. Forgive your former self for not knowing what you know. They didn't know what you know. They were ignorant of what you now know. They didn't have as much agency. They didn't have as much perspective as you. So rather than holding on, what if you just let go, and instead of being upset about your former self, you were insanely grateful for the growth you've experienced as a result? Now fast forward and think about your future self. Think about the person that you could become in 5 or 10 years from now? The version of you that's fully lived out their potential. They've made insanely awesome decisions. They've moved forward powerfully. They've created the life that they want. Who is your future self 10 years from now? What is their life like? What is their situation like? If you were to meet them and sit down with them for lunch, or in a very private place, in an awesome place that you can imagine, you could sit down and just have a conversation with them. What would they be like if they were looking you in the eyes? What would they feel like? What would they say to you? What would they tell you about what you're dealing with now? Now imagine that this future version of yourself, which has evolved, which has progressed, which has transformed and achieved all of your goals, imagine that they were having a conversation with your former self, with the version of you 5 or 10 years ago that was hurt. What would your future self say to them if your future self could sit down and just have one conversation with your former self? What would your future self say to your former self? And what would your future self say to you right now, with everything you're trying to accomplish, with everything you're dealing with? The research is very clear on this subject. Your future self is not the same person you are today. Just like you're not the same person you were 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago. You're in a different world. You're in a different situation. You've got different goals. You've got different perspectives. You've got different values. You've got different priorities. You know things your former self didn't know. You're trying to accomplish things that your former self may not have even been aware of. Albert Einstein said that imagination is more important than knowledge. So take a second, pull out your journal, or just visualize this for a moment. The key to high performance is using your conscious mind to visualize the outcome that you want. Visualize what you want to see happen, and then let it go and let your subconscious take over. Your conscious mind is what some people call self one. Your subconscious mind is what's called self two. Whatever you use your conscious mind to think about gets impressed upon your subconscious. And whatever is impressed on your subconscious gets expressed in the external world. A lot of people use their self one, which is their conscious mind, to continually berate themselves. They say, "Why are you so dumb? Why do you keep making those mistakes?" That's self one beating up self two, and whatever is impressed on the subconscious is expressed in the external world. The ideal situation for this relationship between self one and self two is that self one, which is your conscious mind, continuously visualizes the outcome you want and then gets out of the way and lets self two accomplish it much faster and much more organically. The subconscious mind is infinitely more powerful than your conscious mind. It can accomplish things, physical tasks, whether that be running a marathon, whether that be writing a book, whether that be starting a company, whether that be finding a mentor. Your subconscious will translate, as Napoleon Hill would say, into its physical equivalent by the most direct and easy means. So whatever you visualize with your conscious mind, which is your self one, even if that's just you performing the perfect tennis swing, your job isn't to overly correct and analyze that tennis swing while it's happening. Instead, you're supposed to just visualize what it would look like and feel like and where you want the ball to go, and then turn off self one and just let self two do the job. Just let self two perform its task. It will do it easily, simply, and naturally. You don't have to overly control it with willpower. Your subconscious mind is far more powerful. So your job of self one is to visualize where you want to go, and then through your experience, think about, integrate what you've learned so that you can hold on to it, and then take your experience to visualize better outcomes, to make finer distinctions, to see things your former self couldn't see, and to go for things your former self couldn't have gone for, to clarify your values, to clarify your goals, to clarify what matters to you, to clarify what's important, to specify what you want to see happen, and to get more specific about what you want to see happen. So who is your future self? Who is the person you want to become? What are they like? What is their situation like? What are they focused on? What do they care about? What is their emotional state? What is their emotional development? Are they at peace? How do they handle stressful situations? What is the most important thing in the world to them? What have they created in their life that you haven't created yet? What are they focused on that you are not yet thinking about or aware of? The Chinese proverb says, "The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. Well, let's go into the future 20 years. Your future self is 20 years ahead of you. What is the tree that they're hoping you're going to plant today? What tree do they want you to plant? Or better yet, what orchard do they want you to plant? What bundle of seeds do they want you to plant so that in 20 years from now, after the compound effect has taken its toll in a positive way, what trees and orchard and wealth and experiences and knowledge do you want your future self to have? Your future self is going to have capabilities, skills, knowledge, perspective, abilities, and knowledge that is completely beyond your realm of understanding right now. What is normal life to your future self is not even comprehensible to you right now. But imagination is more important than knowledge. Creativity is more powerful than experience. It's your time right now to create your future self. You get to create the future. You get to decide who you want to be. Once you visualize and imagine your future self, you use that as your guiding star. You think about that with your self one, which is your conscious mind, and you let your subconscious move forward. You use that as your new identity story. Your future self is who you are. It's the person you want to be. When you're asked by friends or colleagues who you are and to tell your story, rather than recounting the tale of your former self, rather than going through the repetitive motions of talking about your past and what got you here, what if you were to courageously yet humbly talk about who you want to become, who your future self is? Dr. Robert Cialdini, one of the foremost psychologists on influence and persuasion, has found that all human beings have a need to be consistent. We're consistent with the words we say. This can often be to our detriment. If we tell someone we're going to do something, then we feel this pressure to do it. That can lead us to doing things we ultimately don't want to do, which is called sunk cost bias. Just because we've said yes, maybe we continue forward because we're just slightly invested. Well, what if you reversed that? What if you used the principle of consistency to your own benefit? What if you started talking about humbly and to the right people what you were going to do, what you're committed to, who your future self was? The principle of consistency would then work in your favor. Rather than trying to fight against your former self, you would simply walk away and you would start acting organically and naturally, subconsciously towards your future self. It's like a child. A child doesn't have to work hard and break the habit of crawling in order to start walking. As soon as it makes sense for them to walk, they start walking. It doesn't take them years of fighting back and forth with themselves to break that habit. It's a simple, organic step. Subconsciously, they see themselves walking and the body takes over. The body is the subconscious mind. It doesn't take effort and years of fighting against bad habits to break them. It takes seeing the future self you want to be, the skills, the abilities, whatever walking is to you, where right now you're crawling, is all you have to do is see what you want, and when you feel ready, let the body take over. Let the subconscious go. You don't have to fight against it. You don't have to use self one to control self two. You don't have to overly control how you do things. You just see what you want, you visualize the outcome, you commit to it, you feel good about it, you tell the right people about it, and then you let the body do it. You let yourself go. You just let performance happen and you don't attach to the immediate outcome. Instead, you analyze how it went, you learn from it, you fail forward in a positive way, and you measure yourself backwards. You measure yourself backwards against who you were before, and you continuously see that you're not the same person you were even 3 months ago, 6 months ago, 12 months ago. You now see things differently. You now say yes to things that your former self didn't say yes to. You say no to things that your former self used to say yes to. You reject experiences, people, relationships, opportunities that were the dreams of your former self because now you can see further. Who is your future self? Whoever that is now who you are today, and you can start walking towards that future self. You can accept it, you can move forward, you can be non-judgmental of your former self, you can be comfortable with your current self but not overly attached to your current self, and you can continuously create, visualize, and guide your life towards your desired future self. I'm Dr. Benjamin Hardy. You can get the next video in this Future Self series. I hope you enjoyed that 10-minute meditation. Please like this video, please subscribe, and have an amazing day.